Coming to y'all from the base of Shirayama in Kagawa Prefecture, a hop, skip, and a jump away from where I live in the mountains in Japan, comes me and my gregarious ass, and today's COTM review for January 2024. Now, being that it is rather unfavorable to fire up a stogie and smoke in the courtyard of a Shinto shrine and potentially offend the gods, I have taken it upon myself to hike a little bit higher up on the mountain behind said shrine so that I can bring you your review. And look what I found. A little stogie smoking spot with all sorts of bonus features, including wooden seat benches of various mixed materials and questionable stability, a secondary bench with a notable slope for when it's time to roll Hot Wheels down the hill, various nuts and seeds for feeding the birds and the homeless, a very spiky looking piece of shrubbery for, well, I don't know what reason, but hell, it looks tropical. And the pièce de résistance, a Showa Jidai style ashtray. Well, all tallied up, you couldn't ask for a better smoking spot. And despite it being a little bit windy on this side of the mountain, I think we're going to get to it, shall we? Oh yeah, Japanese craft cola. Very similar to American craft cola, but Japanese. Ah, there she is. This pigtail cap beauty in my hand is Goldie by La Palina. This is the number 5 Vitola, so it's a Robusto Extra, which translates to a 5 5/8 inch long barrel and a 54 ring gauge. Wrapped up in a very light Habano Ecuadorian wrapper and filled with Ecuadorian binder and a Dominican and Nicaraguan filler combo, this super limited release from La Palina is something we've been sitting on for a while, and for a reason. The number 5 Vitola in my hand has not been seen for about a decade. It was first launched in 2013 as just a special run, and no one's seen it since. But La Palina brought it back for the 2023 PCA Trade Show, just 1,000 boxes to be exact. So we picked some up, and here they are. Produced down at El Titan de Bronze, or El Titan de Bronze, down in Miami, this cigar is an homage to all the women who have made cigar culture what it is today. As for the female face on the band, that is Goldie herself, Goldie Paley, who is the grandmother of current La Palina owner, Bill Paley. And while these cigars did come in a little while back, we kind of sat on them and didn't push them because I smoked one and realized it was not ready. It was good, but it still tasted a little bit green. But 4 months have passed since I last smoked one of these, and after some additional cedar aging in my humidor, I have the feeling that it's right on time. And with a very sunny golden day around me out here, I might as well fire one up. So let's get to some unlit impressions. At first glance, you may think that this is a Connecticut shade-grown wrapped cigar because it really is that light and golden color. But it's an Habano, very light Habano. And like several other light Habano cigars that I have smoked recently, it tends to be a little on the fragile side. I have noted flaking up here near the pigtail cap just from the damn thing sitting in my humidor next to other cigars. I haven't jostled it around. I was very careful about putting it in my travel case, and yet it still has the tendency to flake. No matter though, I'm about to cut the cap off anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's talk about the barrel, which has a very light, slightly sweet, grassy note. There's not much else to say to it besides a little bit of cedar and perhaps a dash of nutmeg, but yeah, just real subtle, super, super clean, super simple. Now the foot, on the other hand, smells spectacular. This is what a lighter medium cigar should smell like. Little hints of clove to it, white pepper, a little hint of marshmallow fluff thrown in with some hay, just a very pleasant, light smelling foot. Oh, I had completely forgotten how good the cold draws are on this cigar. That is delightful. Hey, Goldie, girl, wow, you packing. It's that mixture of nutmeg and clove in just the faintest amount, with a little bit of bitter, a little bit of spice, and by spice again, we're sticking with white pepper, not full-blown black pepper over here, along with matching notes of marshmallow fluff. It's that strange combination of vanilla that's not generic, but it's kind of accentuated to the point where you might feel like it is, mixed in with some more of that grassy straw-like note. One last unlit impression point of this cigar is that there is a little bit of discoloration here and there. Some of the seams have some unpleasant looking modeling to them and little rough spots. And some of the seams in different areas are starting to pull up a little bit, where you can see the wrapper just wasn't cleanly cut and it's just sticking out at a little weird angle here and there. But outside of that, very tightly filled cigar, super well packed. I mean, there's not a soft spot to be felt. This is a very, very firm feeling barrel. And all in all, just a very attractive looking cigar to me. So let's fire it up and see what happens. Goldie, baby, Goldie, 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 Goldie. Kagawa. It's all right. Starter notes on this cigar are very straightforward. Buttery Ritz crackers, a little bit of salinity, not much, and more vanilla and honey-like undertones, similar to the La Palina white label that I reviewed months back and absolutely loved, which coincidentally took top spot for Best Connecticut Shade-Grown Cigar of the Year for 2023. One thing about this cigar that I failed to mention when we were going over its list of ingredients was that it has medio tiempo leaf in it, which is that tippy top little flowering bud leaf on the top of a tobacco plant that doesn't always appear. Only about 10% or so of all plants produce it, so it's highly prized. And because it gets a fair deal of sun, but he's still very small, he's pretty much a stout little bastard. First third impressions make me feel glad that I picked up one of these Japanese craft colas, as those nutmeggy, clovey like spice flavors are making it a nice transitional complement to what I am drinking to go along with this cigar. There's also a little bit more depth to the smoke as it progresses. It becomes gradually a little bit more on the nuttier end and more of that walnut flavor that people tend to like in medium strength, medium flavor, medium bodied cigars of this caliber. It's still primarily grassy and hay-like, but you are going to get some of that darker walnut note to make it taste a little cake-like almost, like a little nut cake or nut bread of some sort. Getting to the point where the second third begins, and flavors and strength as well as body remain in the medium range. It's a clean tasting cigar that is a little on the grassy side, a little on the nutty side, and becoming gradually more round and milky. There are a multitude of different aromatics to this cigar, not just from just smelling the barrel of the cigar as it burns, but also through retrohale. It's floral. We're not talking full bouquet here or anything, but there's definitely some dried flower notes to this cigar. And even though it has struggled to burn evenly and is actually pretty damn wavy, the lines on it are similar to the mountain ranges behind me here in Kagawa right now, it's starting to straighten itself out a little bit. So we'll have to see if I have to do any further touch-ups. Moving from the second third toward the final third, you will find that the honey notes become more of an aromatic than a primary flavor profile. The walnut flavors that were detected earlier in the cigar and that are still very much there in the smoke itself develop a bit more of a bitterness, almost like there's walnut halves that have been toasted, but not all the shell's been picked out yet. So you've got a little bit of a bitter bite to it here and there. It's not every pull that gets this, it comes and goes, but there is a little bit behind it, which, because it's so faint, is kind of a nice balance to what else is going on inside of the cigar. And then there are the retro hails, which also have a little bit of bitterness to them, but are more of that nutty, medium strength, medium bodied aromatic. They kick things up a little bit in the pepper department, but it's not enough to make you say that it's a spicy cigar. It just adds a little bit more complexity and sharpness to the smoking experience. This increase in depth and darkness, shall we say, makes for a nice transition toward the final third. Tack on that additional grassiness that has been there since the beginning, along with the hay-like notes that are dry, and the milkiness that's a little bit sweet, but not super sweet, and you've got yourself a nice second third. Retrohaling within the final third will provide you with what is arguably the most complex cigar flavor profile of the entire stick. It kicks things up a notch or two, maybe even three in the strength department from those medio tiempo leaves inside, as well as in its depth and darkness. There's a faint darkness to the cigar that likes to tease you with notions of going further down the rabbit hole, but doesn't really go all the way. Again, it's just a tease. And you won't get it as much unless you retrohale. As mentioned earlier, retrohales also produce more of those honey-like notes from the aromatics, and it still remains somewhat floral. The bitterness from the cigar dies back a good bit too when you do this, so I highly recommend that you give it a shot if you pick up some of the Goldies. All right, Goldie girl, it's time to put you aside for a sec. Whoop, whoopsh. With parting puffs approaching and the sun going down, I figured it's time to look at what we've got and discuss Goldie. I'm glad that I waited to review this cigar and utilize it as our COTM. It has done a phenomenal job of settling down while sitting in the humidor for the past 6 months or so. Many of those astringent flavors that I detected months back when I first sampled it are no longer present. It's still got a little bit of bitterness and kind of green grassy notes here and there, but it's nothing compared to what it was prior, which wouldn't call it tolerable, but the final third was not very good at all. In contrast, this has a phenomenal final third, which in my opinion is the best part of the cigar. It's more round and it's chewier and nuttier with still being in that medium bodied, medium flavor range and with a little bit of a retrohale on the upper end of medium in strength. Many of those spice notes, though, that I detected pre-light weren't really present in the cigar outside of the first third. And the second third I found to be a little bit of a lackluster. It was a bit of a jumbled mess, and I couldn't really detect much of anything as a standout in the regard to, this is amazing at this point. It was still floral, it was still flavorful, and very smooth, but nothing that I'm going to write home about in regard to its complexity. And while the draw on the cigar felt very fluid, smoke production was tepid at best. It's almost like it's just producing at half throttle. But perhaps one of the biggest issues with this cigar and the one prior were all of the construction gremlins that plagued it. A closer inspection of the burn line as I touched it up revealed that it's the binder on these cigars that have been a little bit of an issue here and there. And by a little bit, I had to do a few touch-ups in the first third, one in the second third, and then a baby one in the final third. But as for overall flavor profile and aromatics, very tasty. I like that this cigar has a lot of the similar attributes that I found in the white label by La Palina, which, as I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite Connecticut shade-grown cigars on the market today. And what an aftertaste this cigar has. Very clean, nothing funky or overly bitter once you exhale. Just a nice way to finish out a cigar. I also really like how the cigar looks. Love the flag cap, like having Goldie's bust on the front of it. And then the actual wrapper itself, even though it's got a little discoloration here and the seams aren't the tightest thing on the market, it's a very nice, shiny, Goldie colored cigar. It also feels great in the hand. There's not a soft spot on any of the cigars that I smoked, and I just like the way it feels. It's got just a hint of spring, but it's just firm and just a very sturdy smoke. And even now, as I approach parting puffs, more and more nuttiness comes to the forefront and it becomes even creamier. A very nice finish to an already solid cigar. So if you have a little extra pocket change lying around and you want to get something really rare, again, there are only 1,000 boxes of this produced, then grab some up because I give this a 4.3 out of 5 stars, making it a solid smoke. Speaking of finishing up, it is that time. The sun's almost down in the west and I gotta pack up and get back down the mountainside. So I'll catch y'all in the next review. Cheers.